Today is around how to dominate 2019 using Snapchat, TikTok influence. That was primarily because James asked me for a title and I was like, fuck, shit, all right, quick, this, how to dominate 2000. But really what this talks about is fundamentally how to drive downloads from a Gen Z and millennial audience, even if you are not one yourself. Because I believe that as marketers who are thinking about reaching a much younger audience, the number one thing that you can do is understand the mindset of a younger audience. Because I can come here, I can tell you guys all about the tactics and all that stuff, but really that's just short term. If you understand the strategy and the mindset behind it, that's where you really win. And so that's the aim of what we're going to be doing in the next 15 minutes. So by way of introduction, my name is Timothy Armour. I'm 24. I'm CEO of Fanbyte. And what we have, we're a 2-year-old company. And what we have is we've built a network and own and operate network of massive social media accounts and influencers on Snapchat, TikTok, and Instagram. And in just over 2 years, we've been fortunate enough to work with some of the world's biggest brands and actually call some of these brands investors in our company as well. And for a company that has grown quite quickly, we fundamentally built this on one single premise. And it's the premise I'm going to share with you guys today, and that's this idea of advertainment, which is the fusion of advertising and entertainment coming in together. And fundamentally, I believe in a world where we're just bombarded with a shit ton of ads everywhere, and so many ad blockers are just on the rise. If you're trying to reach this audience, the number one principle is this whole idea of advertainment here. So how many of you guys here have heard of this idea of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, by show of hands? Yeah, so we basically plagiarized that. We just went for the Fanbyte's hierarchy of results. And to us, it goes at the top level, you have your reach, and then you have your engagement, but then you truly have your advertainment. And to us, reach and engagement are fundamentally commodities, because you can be competing against P&G, Unilever, and they're just gonna outspend you. If someone has 100 times the budget that you have, they're going to win day in, day out if the thing that you're comparing is this idea of reach and impressions and all that stuff. But this idea of advertainment here is where you literally are playing on a completely different level. And so again, the end of this conversation, the whole idea is that you guys have the mindset and the strategies used to play on a different level, because we can't keep letting the big guys just outspend us, right? Simply, in my business, to all our employees, I say that we are competing against very well-funded people, and we don't compete on the same level. And as a consequence, I want you guys to think about how to use this idea of advertainment to compete on a different level to your competitors. That sound good? Come on, guys. That sound good? Yeah. Sweet. So, in advertainment, the 3 pillars of advertainment, which is what we are all talking about here, and we have them as these 3 things here. Enabling people to be the star of their own TV show, tapping into culture, and then using platforms like TikTok to create these fun brand interactions here. And so on that first point about enabling people to be the star of their own TV show. Now, here's the thing, right? When you think about social media, you pretty much may think about it as this one thing. But the number one way to think about social media is that it's just a web of personalized TV broadcasts. What do I mean by that, right? So your Facebook feed, your Instagram feed, your Twitter feed, etc., that is essentially a depiction of what you'd want people to think about you if there was a camera on you 24/7, right? We can always say social media shows us to be our rawest form, but that's fucking bullshit, right? Because there are things you are not posting on Facebook. There are things that you're not posting on Instagram, right? And you know that because what you want to show is essentially an idealized version of what the world wants, of what you want the world to see you as. And so as a consequence, for brands, the number one thing you can do, especially when reaching this much younger audience, is ask yourself, how can you help people be the best broadcasters? Rather than interrupting content, how do you position yourself so that people, whilst they're promoting themselves and creating the best TV show, essentially, are also then promoting you? And this is a very simple ethos. The person who wins is the one who creates content which fits my TV channel. I will happily engage with you every single time if engaging with your app or your brand makes me look cool. Simple as that, especially when targeting the younger audience. And I think one of the biggest things in 2019 are these Snapchat augmented reality lenses. The fact that they can transpose me into a completely different world. The fact that I can essentially use a lens to turn myself into something which makes my TV channel cooler is one of the most powerful things. But for a very long time, if you ever wanted to run these lenses, you'd go directly to Snapchat and they'd say, okay, yeah, you can, but 50 grand minimum spend. And then you're like, yeah, I'm not Netflix, right? So I'm not paying that. Until this happened. And this was the Lens Studio that came out. And on a Lens Studio, anyone in the whole world could essentially, with a bit of like technical capabilities and creativity, build a lens which could engage people and turn people into actually just creating the best TV channels they possibly can. And as a company, when we saw this, so we saw this about last year, and we're just like licking our lips. I remember in our Slack channel, like everyone just sent it at the same time. They were like, wow, this is gonna be cool. Because we suddenly realized that this ethos of like creating the best TV channel was actually possible. And when we started thinking about that, we realized now that price barrier is gone. And the most important thing now, the variables were the content and creativity. And now anyone in the world with just changing their mindset could then be enabled to do this. And as we got thinking about that, we then reached out to one of our customers, Plato. Plato, a social gaming app. Who here remembers Miniclip? Right? So Plato are like the mobile like Miniclip, basically. In one app, you can play chess, backgammon, all that stuff. But there's a very cool game you can play called Werewolf, where essentially it's kind of a derivative of Mafia. And what it is you are a villager and you're being chased by werewolves. And you have a set time in order to find out who actually the werewolf is. And they came to us and were like, hey, we're doing stuff on Facebook and Instagram, and it's kind of cool, etc., but like it's not really cutting through, right? And this is the problem a lot of people and targeting younger people find. Like, it's getting that emotional cut through. And when it came to us, we said, do you know what would be cool? We basically have like a way where could we build a lens which could essentially take people into a haunted cabin. And in that cabin, the werewolf is trying to come in order to attack them. And maybe we can then put in some subtle Plato branding in there so that it actually shows the brand as well. So then we created that lens, and what happened was we then distributed it through our influencers. So we told our influencers, hey, take this piece of content and just tell your fans to start using it. So I thought what could be cool would actually show how it actually looks. So this goes, for a chance to be featured, vote for your favorite lens and send in your videos of you using it. So this is just how it looked. So this is lens of them playing around with it. And you can see the werewolf in the background coming towards them. And them opening up a chest which shows the brand's name, Plato, in there. And what's super interesting is like, that was just the lens there. And we just told people to use that lens there, right? And they could just unlock the lens and then start then going into their own world as well. And that was the simple thing that we did. And what happened there was in 3 days, they ended up getting that amount of views. But what's even crazier was the amount of scans and shares they got. Over 170,000 people, over 177,000 people actually took the lens, unlocked it, and started playing with it. This isn't 170,000 people liked it. 130 people shared it. Yeah, that's really fun, right? But people actually took the extra initiative to actually scan it and use that lens. And not only that, but it ended up being the #1 trending lens on the whole of Snapchat. The entirety of Snapchat, everywhere in the whole world, it was the #1 lens because people took that and had their own fun with it in order to create their own broadcast. But how does this translate to ROI? That's the most important thing that we're after here. They use these strategies to scale from 20,000 DAUs to 200,000 DAUs just in 6 months. Just using like this type of branding here. And again, the reason why they won was because they instantly went away from just this interrupting form of advertising to actually enabling people to create the best possible TV broadcast they could do. The second thing is this idea of like tapping into culture. Now this I enjoyed because I could just show a bunch of memes, but we understand that in this younger audience, we are probably the most culturally engaged people ever. Like we made a guy who basically used a knife to chop up beef incredibly famous. Like where else would you see this? But then what's super interesting is for a long time, a lot of brands basically look like this. they're just talking to themselves, or they're just talking to a wall and not really taking any idea of the actual cultural tendencies of the audience they are targeting. And I thought that when you really think about engaging with these guys, it's significantly easier for you to actually enter into a conversation that's already going on in someone's head, as opposed to trying to start off a whole new conversation. And I thought what could be cool would be to actually show an example. So this is an example of an app called DIFM. They're essentially a streaming app, but for EDM lovers. And in a world where you're competing against Spotify and Apple Music, you are not going to be able to outspend them. Fact, right? You can't say, hey guys, we're gonna run some Facebook ads, because if Spotify and Apple Music are running Facebook ads to that same audience, you're gonna lose. Facts, right? So now how then do you think about actually competing against these guys? And that's this whole idea of tapping into culture. So again, they were doing Facebook, they were getting like $2.90 and it was all cool, etc. But then we thought, your audience is 18 to 25-year-olds who are interested in like EDM music, right? Is it possible that we can pick the moments in culture which they identify with a lot and bring them together and insert your brand into that conversation? How many of you guys know this TV show, Bob's Burgers, by show of hands? Lovely. So Bob's Burgers is a hit favorite with a lot of that audience between 18 to 25. And what's interesting, there's a character in there called Tina. Now, Tina is known as the very socially awkward person, but we were deciding and thinking, well, actually, a lot of people understand this TV show and get this TV show, right? The other moment that is really prominent in the EDM scene is when the beat drops, right? When the beat drops, everyone goes crazy, right? So we're like, well, can we take that moment, and then can we take like the TV show, and then like bring them together to actually maybe do something which can tap into the culture and actually inserts the brand into a conversation that's already been had. And so I thought here, what could be cool, bear in mind, just before we play this, notice how freaking amateur this is. It's not polished. We didn't need some massive creative studio to do anything. This was all built actually in Snapchat, and then we distributed it through our Snapchat influencers. But you get the point here, just before we play this. It's like, nothing I'm telling you here requires some like insane amount of budget. All it requires is a change in creativity and mindset to actually reach its audience. So I play this one. Again, very simple, brought in together the TV show, and when the beat drops, and what happened, boom, 79-cent CPI from $2.90. And the lady actually said, who would have thought that a twerking cartoon more than half our CPIs? A twerking cartoon, half their CPIs, amazing. But again, all that is, like that example is just to show you there, very simply, doesn't require some like astronomical change in the way they're doing things. It just requires a change and an obtaining of the mindset to reach its audience. And the last thing I want to talk about here is actually using TikTok to create fun brand interactions. Now, you've obviously seen the ads pretty much everywhere, right? So, on YouTube ads, on the Tube ads, etc., all around TikTok. And you're probably wondering, like, how actually you can use this. So I'll just give a bit of context behind actually just some context, right? So started off as a lip syncing app, but right now it's like a meme-focused short video app, right? So very simple. 60% are female, 91% commented and shared a video. That's like insane engagement. And it was the 4th most installed app in 2018. And this is just some stats here from like Sensor Tower on the iPhone App Store. It was actually the most downloaded app in the whole world in 2018. And as you can see, it ranks pretty high there. But for a very long time, when you think about that, and here I'll show you some examples of the type of content that's created on TikTok, just so you can get a good sense of the seriousness, or shall we say the unseriousness of the platform. So this is just an example. So as you can see there, not particularly serious content, but is this like goofy and fun nature which lends itself quite well. So if you're an app trying to actually reach an audience on TikTok, fundamentally there are like 2 ways you can do that. Number 1, live streaming. Number 2, skits. And I'll show you actually how these have been used from an app perspective. So live streaming. A lot of people, when they think about TikTok, they think about like those videos that I just showed you, right? But here's the thing, there's a massive way in which to reach that audience just through live streaming. And when we talk about live streaming, we're not talking about the same thing that you can do on like Instagram Live, etc. But here's the thing with TikTok, there are fundamentally only two functions. You can either create videos or you can go live. As opposed to say something on Instagram, where there's like a shit ton of stuff I can do on Instagram, which therefore means that even if I go live, like a lot of people aren't turning up because there's just so much other stuff that they could be doing. As opposed to on TikTok, it's just one of the two things. And the secret to actually really knocking it home with going live is to tie a call to action with an incentive from the influencers. What do I mean by that? It's actually, say, as an app, working with an influencer and saying, is there a way where you could do something where if people go on the app and do something, you can then maybe shout them out on your live stream or something like that. Tying in so that it's like a full 360 campaign. So I thought here I'd show another example, but this was actually through, I decided I'll go with Plato again just because, well, it's just easier. But here, what happens is like an influencer goes live on TikTok whilst also promoting Plato. But notice the organic and the natural way. But as it's going on, notice that as he's talking, people are downloading Plato as he's speaking and actually just like popping up on the app.
Should I tell you about, okay, I'll tell you a bit about it now. You just twisted my arm, and I'm going to tell you about it right now. So I downloaded this app, me and my friend Lucy, you know the Jugs is, Lucy, aka best person, aka amazing. So I wanted to go on the live stream, guys, and do something more fun and like interactive with you all. Again, I know the emoji games and the letter games are fun and they're amazing and we love it. But like I want to do something that's really fun, and I'd said this a while ago in terms of I want to do something fun and interacting with you than like beating you at games. And you might have already had the app already. I've spoken about it before. I've played some of y'all on it before, and you know, I'm not gonna lie, I get beat all the time and it really annoys me, but it should be fun. So just to let you know, guys, the app that we're talking about today, that you know I don't like to talk about much apps, so I want to play games with you all, against you all on it. So the app's called Plato, and it looks like this. There we go. Oh, Henny! Yes. Now, some of you might have already kind of had it before, etc. Like what I spoke about before. Yes, loving that. Oh, look. Completed the game.
And you can see that people are just
now, guys, it's
thumbsing up, just showing the game.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to be VAing people versus you. I want you to go against me and challenge me. And if you go onto it and you download it, you can sign up through Facebook, etc. And you can actually search for me here. Give it a second. Let's create a group. Sorry. So if you go to this, go to friends, and you can search on it, which is just.
He's going live and showing people how to actually play around with the game, etc. And what's super interesting is like you saw all the comments, you saw all the like thumbs up there. Like in going live, he was actually sending people directly to the app. Another question is like, what type of content should I create on TikTok? This is a no-brainer. Comedy trumps everything else. It's kind of ironic that I have Trump and comedy in the same line. He's a joke anyway. Had to get that in there. And comedy trumps everything else. And it's really cool because like any app can actually be turned into something funny. So I thought I'd show an example here of this app called Hilly. Hilly are a dating app. They came to us. They said they want to target like 18 plus females and males. And so what they typically come across doing was become a bit of like a serious app, you know, because they thought that to be positioned against Tinder, they needed to kind of talk more about how good they were, etc. And then we thought, throw all of that outside of the window, and let's focus on it kind of being a bit more humorous. So we created a brief, gave it out to our influencers, and I just thought I'd show some examples of how a dating app actually can be turned into something a bit funny. As long as I got my suit and tie, I'ma leave it all on the floor tonight. Turn up a bit, please.
Later, bro. Got another date today. Wait, what? Bro, how do you get dates like every day? That's crazy. I got you. Hey, check this out. You'll thank me later. Really? Whoa, match. That's crazy. Oh.
Right? There's that, and then this other person.
Highly, highly, make me smiley. Ooh, cowboy trucks. You can talk about me, but you can't talk about my truck. My God, I need that. Who is it?
Me, sweetheart.
Howdy, boo.
Yes, loud. Right, just like completely funny piece of content there, and that ended up helping them with the CPIs. I don't think I have that stat. I think it was this one, but yeah. I can show us that afterwards. But in terms of the CPIs and CPAs, it reduced the CPIs by 17% and it reduced the CPAs by 35%. And the only reason why is because people had emotionally already invested in the app through the humor here. And as a consequence, when they then go and actually download the app, they are more likely to then install it. I thought I showed a last example here of My Music. They again came to us trying to target like 18 plus. And again, they were an app where you could essentially be the judge of tracks on the app. So we thought, hey, maybe we could come up with something a bit more humorous where the influencers themselves showed themselves being judges. So again, I thought I'd show an example here.
¿Dónde? Stop! Let's go! Play music! No. I found an app. It's called My Music.
Huh?
Yeah. It's like a dating app.
But for music?
So when you like a song, you swipe right, and it'll recommend you more of the songs, but if you don't like a song, you swipe left, and it'll stop showing you songs like that.
Sick.
Nice.
Make this here with all the ice on in the...
I let you push me past the breaking point. I stood for nothing, so I...
Yeah, todos están pendientes a ti, pero tú puesta para mí, haciendo.
Guys, that's the app of My Music. Go check it out right now. Do it.
So again, just that. It wasn't, hey guys, go download My Music. It was great, right? They actually turned it into something quite funny. And what did they see? A 27% lower CPI compared to Facebook and Instagram and 39% lower CPA compared to Facebook and Instagram. And that's fundamentally what you get with this whole idea of advertainment here. And so just to summarize, again, the 3 pillars of advertainment. Enable everyone to be the star of their own TV show. Tapping into culture and then using platforms like TikTok to create fun brand interactions. One last thing, James will note that I always leave my thing with one last thing. That's just a thing that I picked up from Steve Jobs. But a lot of people here have been like curious about like actually understanding TikTok. So if you guys want to actually get an insider's guide as to that, you can just head on to that link, media.fanbytes/APS, or email hello@fanbytes, and we've created a whole guide for you guys as to like how to use TikTok and do all that good stuff as well. So you can grab that as well if you like. My name's Timo. Cheers in a bit.